Okay, so this is going to be a long overdue update to my original storyboard tutorial. This one's hopefully going to include some of the new components such as collection views and some of the new features with collection views and UITableViews. So I'm probably going to break this into a few parts, but in this part I'll probably have just the sort of basic stuff. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a new project. We'll just do a single view application and we're going to call it storyboarding. We're using Arc as usual now and storyboard, so we'll just build this for the iPhone. I'm going to save this to my desktop. And that should be us ready to go. So let's go straight to our storyboard. So here we see the first scene. This arrow indicates the scene that the storyboard when launched will start with. Previously you could get rid of these, but the always one seems to be associated now. But if you want to change the ViewController that acts as the entry point into your storyboard, then you can do it by checking this box here, is initial ViewController, and you'll notice that the arrow changes to this new view. So let's get rid of that view for the time being. So that's how you set the initial scene that we're going to head into. Another couple of nice little tools is if we go to editor and embed in, you can see that we can now take this scene and embed it in either a tab bar controller or a navigation controller, and that takes us straight to a good starting point of where we might want to be depending on an application. So for this one I'm going to embed the initial view in a navigation controller, and here we see the navigation controller is created with the view attached to it. Now this Segue here, I tend to call them Segues just for short, but so if I start doing that you'll know that I mean a Segue. Here indicates a relationship. So if we get rid of that, you can see that if we right click on this navigation controller and drag it out across to the view controller, we'll see that you can get segue types, which we'll discuss in a couple of minutes, or this relationship segue. So we're going to choose root view controller for this relationship, and here you can see the same icon comes back to denote that this is a relationship between the two views. So let's look at segues to transition to new view controllers. So here we're going to have, let's add a label to this view first of all. I'm going to the object library and look for UI label, and I'll drag that over here and just put in scene 1. Should say that just to make it look a little bit nicer. So we want to transition from scene 1, and we'll copy that across to here, and we'll call this scene 2. We want to transition from scene 1 to scene 2. Now there's various ways in which we can do this, and we're going to start with a modal view. So we'll take a UI bar button. And we'll add it to our navigation bar, and we'll call this scene 2. Now typically when you have UI bars buttons in the navigation bar, typically you want to present things modally. This is kind of a rough rule of thumb when it comes to the HIG. Apple don't always do it, but I still try and keep to that type of approach. So if we take this scene 2 and we again right click and drag out, we get an action segue, and we decide which type of action do we want to push. Do we want modal or do we want custom? Custom are a little bit more advanced, and we'll probably get to that in one of the later videos, but we'll do push and modal today. So let's just choose modal, and here we can see that we've got a new segue, and this is different from the relationship segue that we can see here. This is denoting that we're going to have a modal transition. So if we tap on this, we'll see that the style is modal. Again, we can change it should we want to change our mind later, and we can change the type of transition. So at the moment we're just going to have a view that's displayed that animates from the bottom to the top of the screen and overlays, but we can test out some of these other transitions in a little second. So let's just run this and see what this looks like. So here we have scene 1, and now if we tap scene 2, we see scene 2 come up. It's probably not as clear as it could be, so let's go back to scene 2. And since we're presenting this modally, let's present it in its own navigation controller. Remember, if you're presenting things by pushing them on, you can't push a navigation controller onto another navigation controller. So it's just something to note. So this should make it a little bit clearer now. You should see it coming up. So that's it, scene 2. We have no way of dismissing this yet. So let's think about dismissing it. Okay, so let's add in a cancel button. So go across to our attributes inspector, and we will choose cancel as the standard system button type. And we're now going to create a class called scene2. And this is a view controller. Oops, I just do UI view. And let me just get rid of the prefix because I think my initials may confuse things a little here. So this is, let's create that into the project. So here we have our scene view controller. What we're going to do now is we want to add an IB action. We'll add this to our interface. Now again, you don't need to add these to your interface. If you just add them to the body, then they will be they'll be available in Interface Builder. But I like to make sure that I consider if an action should be public or not, to make sure that we update the interface just for clarity when we're coding. I think it's always good practice to either decide whether it's a private or a public method, and even though we don't need to instantiate IB actions, not instantiate, declare IB actions in our interfaces, we should always do it just as a good coding practice, either in a public or a private interface. So anyway, that's my little rant over. Let's call this cancel, and we'll add this into our main body. This completion is part of the sort of blocks system that you can use to tell you exactly when the animation is complete. These can be very useful, and again, this is something I should get to in a later tutorial. So let's go back to our main storyboard. We'll pick the view controller by selecting it down here. We can see it's selected through this blue line, and now we'll set the class of that to scene2 view controller. Now if we tap on the cancel button, right click again and drag to the view controller, we'll see now that again we've got segue actions, but we also have this sent action which includes our cancel IB action. So if we tap on that, we should have hooked this button up to the IB action we just created, and that IB action will dismiss itself after having been presented. So let's just quickly have a look at that. So we've got scene 1, we're going to go to scene 2, and now we're going to cancel, and we're back to scene 1. We can play around with the segue. So remember, this is the relationship. The segue to this whole scene is actually this one here. We'll look at CrossDissolve. Let's see what happens when we do CrossDissolve. We're going to tap on scene 2, and now we've dissolved into scene 2. So let's just have a look at that. It's kind of almost like a fade in and fade out. We can see a partial curl. I've actually never had this one. The cancel's actually hidden here, so you probably would want to have a separate button, so we can't really see it. So yeah, that's probably why I don't use it for this type of transition. Flip horizontal. This one's just like a little flip. It's always nice for settings. You'll see things like this on maybe some of your widgets, like your stock widgets and things like that. Okay, so that's just kind of a brief summary of the different types you've got there. So you can always play around with them. So now I'm going to have a look at a different type of transition, which typically occurs from UITableView. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at for a UITableView controller. Oops, help with my spelling. And what we'll do is, in fact, yeah, we'll just embed this in its own navigation controller. And what we'll do at the moment is we will say this one is going to be our initial view controller. So this storyboard line is currently not going to be accessible or run when we run the code. There is no connection between this line and this. Not to say for any reason other than for demonstration purposes. We may decide to put both of these together in a couple of minutes. So here we have a table view controller. Well, first of all, we're going to have to create a table view controller class that will allow us to populate this with data. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do what type of data are we going to use here? We'll call this our contact list. We'll have a UITableView controller. And we'll create that. Okay. So we're going to implement our data source and delegates, but let's just quickly create a private property. NS mutable. In fact, let's just make it an array of people. We'll synthesize this. And when the page is loaded for the first time, we will make sure that we have an instantiation of an array with some data. Array with objects, and we'll just put some strings in here for the time being. So we now have 4 people. We can go to the table view data source. So the number of sections, we're only going to have one section this time, so I'm going to take out this warning and add in the number 1. The number of rows in the section, well, we want to have the same number of rows as people. So we'll do people count, and that will give us the 4 elements inside our array. And what we'll do is we'll take our cell and we'll set the text label on the cell as text to the relevant person, and that is going to be object index path top row. We only have one section, so we only really need to consider the rows here. Now you'll notice that in the stub there's this instantiation here which creates a static property variable which is a string for cells. Now this is the reuse identifier, and if you specify that in your storyboard, then when DQ reusable cell with identifier is called, it will instantiate a cell of the correct prototype. So let me just kind of show you what this means. So here we've got the name cell, so we're going to just copy that just to make sure that we use the exact name. It's not hard to spell, but just wanted to kind of make sure that everyone gets that this is what we're using. When we go to the main storyboard, we go to our table view, and this prototype cell represents the cell that we want to create copies of when we are going to lay out this table view. Over here, and again in the attribute inspector, we can see that the identifier, the reuse identifier, hasn't been set. If we were to run this now, hopefully we should get a crash. Oops, there, why did that not crash? Oh, didn't crash because I didn't set the table view correctly. So let me just set this to contact list. Oops, need to highlight the right thing. Back to normal. Okay, so I've set the type of the UITableView controller to contact list view controller. Now if I run this, it crashes, and the reason it crashes is it tries to DQ. So here we can see in the error log, it tries to DQ a cell with an identifier. Now what is the identifier it's trying to DQ? It's trying to DQ identifier cell, which is this one here. And inside our table view controller, this table view controller here, there is no prototype cell with that identifier, because if we look again in the attribute inspector, we can see the reuse identifier hasn't been set. So if we copy in cell, it now knows that when I say DQ a row with identifier cell, DQ a row like this. So hopefully when I run it this time, we see Bob, Janet and John. Now, with individuals, you may want to show some detail. So let's take our people and let's quickly create a little class called people, or person, that probably would be a more sensible name, and it's just going to be an object. It's almost like a model class. And then we're going to create a couple of properties here. Oops, where am I? Not in the edge. A couple of properties in the header. We'll do name. Let's do an integer property. Normally you would calculate the age from a date, but let's just store the age as an absolute value. So here the property neither is not specified as strong or weak because it's a base type. Instead we just need to instantiate it like this. Let's do first name First name. And what else would a person have? Let's do okay, so let's just do this for the time being. There's a couple of properties. Inside our body we'll synthesize each of these methods, so just copy them in so that I know the names of them. My memory's terrible. Probably want a convenience initializer since we require all of these. Just quickly add that to our body. Okay, so that gives us a nice little placeholder class just so that we can instantiate some people. So let's create some people here. Let's do oops, probably should include it. Let's just create a few more people. Don't want to leave them out. Now we'll just change the okay, so that's just really a little bit of scaffolding just to help us illustrate the tutorial. So let's go back to what we were looking at. So first of all, we're going to update the text in the cell to make sure we've got the right text. So we know that that's going to return as a person, and we're going to want that person's first name. Okay, so let's just double check that we're working here. And again, we're working again. So now we're going to go back to the storyboard, and we want to allow the cell that displays the first name of an individual in the contact list to then allow you to drill down into the details to display the favourite colour, the second name and the age. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a UI view controller, and we'll pull that over here. And what we're going to do is when we go to the cell, we'll select the prototype cell. Again, we'll right click on it and we'll drag out a segue. And this time we're going to choose a push transition. Now here you'll see the navigation bar gets added because it knows it's been pushed. So it knows that there's going to be a navigation controller it's pushed onto. You'll notice a slightly different icon for the segue, and also the disclosure indicator for our cell. So now when we tap the cell, we should see this scene. So let's just again quickly put in some labels just so we definitely know we're on this person in detail screen. Okay, so let's run that. So here we can see we've got the disclosure indicators, and we can click and we go to the person detail screen, and we hit back and we go back. Again, choose any one of these and it takes us to that screen. But how do we know which cell has been tapped and therefore which person's individual details should be shown? Well, that's where we look at prepare for segue. Now, let's create a class for this person detail first, and then we'll go and deal with the prepare for segue. So we're going to call this person detail. That's our UI view controller. So we'll create that. This view controller requires some public outlets, and these are weak because Interface Builder will deal with the reference counting, so things will not be released when we don't need them. If you make these things public, sometimes you do have to consider that people may actually attach something to your outlet in code rather than from Interface Builder, and therefore it will be released and give you a memory exception. So be careful with how you declare these, and make sure you understand how people are going to use them. Make sure that if you're going to declare it as weak, that it's only going to be used to hook up Interface Builder elements. So fname label, and we're going to need sname and age. Yeah, so we'll have an age label. And for the colour, we're just going to change the background of the view to show the person's favourite colour. And that should hopefully let us see it. We're going to need to know the person that we're displaying. We need to keep a hold of them, so we're going to have to maintain the reference count to them. So let's import person while we're at it. And we'll switch. So just a quick tip, most of you probably already know this, but if you hold Control Command and press up, it flips you between the body and the header files. It's a really nice way to switch things quickly. So that's just synthesized all our properties. Now, when it's displayed, we want the fname label text to display the. In fact, let's do this properly. It's self.fname.text equals first name, self.sname label equals what we're going to do is we're going to do self.view set background colour to the person's favourite colour. So that should change the colour of the view. So that's us now set up the detail view controller. We've got a series of IB outlets and we've got something to hold the person that we want to display. So we'll go to the storyboard first of all and we'll change the type of our detail person controller, and we'll call this person detail view controller. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag in the labels again. In fact, let me do a few labels here. Let's do, so if you hold all as normal, you can do first name, so these top three labels, first name, second name, age, will not change and are therefore not required for anything, just there to make the elements more readable. These three labels are going to act as our placeholders for the three IB outlets that we created. So let's hook them up. So you can click on your person detail and drag and drop from there on to the particular label. The outlets will be listed and you just pick the one that you want it to adhere to. Or over here in this connections inspector on the right hand side, you'll notice that the outlets are also listed and you can just drag straight from here. And either way, again, I guess it depends. Sometimes I use both methods. So that's us hooked up this interface. We know that the view controller is of the right type and all of the various elements are going to display the correct properties of our person class. But how do we get the person set? Well, what we do is we need to look at the contact list view. So the contact list view is this class here. And there's a method now called prepare for Segue. So void prepare for Segue. And we need to determine which segue that's currently happening, because there could be multiple segues all coming off the same view. So what we do is we go back to the storyboard and we say, okay, it's going to be the segue from our contact list view to our detail view, which is this one here. We are going to identify it as person detail segue. We'll copy that so we get it correct. And then we're going to go back here and we're going to say, okay, if the segue that's fired this method, if its identifier is equal to the string that we've just added to a segue, then we want to do something. Otherwise, it's not the correct segue. So now what we can do is we can say, okay, well, where was it sent from? Well, we know it was sent from a cell. So this sender is going to be a cell. So we do UITableViews cell equals we'll just cast this. And then we can do self.TableView text path for cell. We know that the person now is So what we've done is we've said, right, we know that it's been a cell that's been tapped because this cell is only cells that can fire the segue. So we find out what that cell is. Then we say, where is that cell in our table view? So we get the index path. And then once we get the index path, in the same way we do when we get it for cell for row, we just pull out the person associated with that particular index path. Now, what we do is we interrogate the segue itself, and we look for our person detail view controller. So let's first of all import person detail view controller. Now we need to get a hold of a person view controller. Now a segue will contain two things. Let's have a look at it. It contains a source controller. So in this case the source controller will be our UITableView, which contains a list of people, the contact list view controller. And the segue also has a destination view controller, which is the view controller that the segue is pointing to. So that in our case is the person detailed view controller. So that's the one we want to get a handle to, so that we can set the person to be displayed. So we're going to say we want to cast it so we can get the right methods, and we say it's going to be segue dot destination view controller. Now all we need to do is set the person on that, and we're done. So fingers crossed, if we run this, we should see everything as we expected. Yay. Scott Sherwood, age 30, favourite colour purple, Bob, Smith 21, red, Janet and John. So that's us looked at how you would do a modal transition and also how you would do a push transition. Let's do one final thing just to link these two lines up. Let's see if we can do, let's first of all, let's take this and do embed in a tab bar controller. So now we have one tab with a relationship to this line that we were just running, and we want to add a relationship to the second line, so now we have two tabs. So hopefully this should let us have two paths through this system and try out both demonstrations at the one time. So here we have the contact list view, which is the first tab, and the second tab is our modal view between two scenes. So hopefully we can see that this one still works, and when we go here we can still go through our contact list. So this is just the basic storyboarding elements, and the next tutorial is going to take this a step further and hopefully start to outline more advanced features and look more at iOS 6 features. This is just really designed to give a much higher quality version of the video that I had done previously. So I hope this helps somebody, and look forward to responding to any of your questions. Thanks. Bye.